Today we're going to talk about how to factor by grouping. We're going to go through the basic idea and then I'm going to do two examples for you. The basic idea is you have a 4-term polynomial. These might actually be plus signs or minus signs, but either way we are going to group the first two. You're going to have a plus sign in the middle and then you're going to group the next two. And then what we're going to do is we're going to pull out our GCF from each pair of terms. So you pull out the GCF from the first two terms, and then you have whatever's left over. Plus, you're going to pull out the GCF from your next two terms times whatever's left over. Whoops, I got that backwards. There we go. Now, hopefully, if this is factorable, these two things are going to be the same. And this will be one of your factors. Your other factor is going to be the stuff left over. That would be the first GCF plus or minus the second GCF. And then these would be your two factors. So this is the basic process. One thing, if you find that these two binomials are not the same, you might want to come up to the very top and rearrange. You might need to come up here and rearrange your terms and try it again. So let's go through an example. Now, we have a 4-term polynomial, and I need to have 2 terms plus 2 terms. So this is going to be xy minus 5x. This is going to be 3y minus 15. I'm going to pull out my GCFs. In the first one, notice these both have an x. That's my GCF. And what I'm left with is y minus 5. I'm going to pull out the GCF from my second pair of terms here. The 3y and the 15, they both have a positive 3 as a GCF. And when I pull the positive 3 out, I'm left with y minus 5. I'd like you to notice that those are the same. That's going to be one of my factors. Now, just a side note here. Let's suppose I have x. Let's suppose I have x times z plus 3 times z. If I look at this, I can very clearly see that z is a common factor for these two terms. I can pull the z out, and I'm left with this x plus 3. That stuff left over. Here, same idea, except now instead of z, I have this binomial y minus 5. So I'm going to pull that out just like I did before. I'm going to pull this out. I'm going to take out the y minus 5 as a GCF. And what I'm left with are these terms, x plus 3. And this would be this 4-term polynomial in factored form. Again, if you want to check it, we can just FOIL these two together and we will see that we end up with this. Let's do the next example. For the next example, remember, we want to group our first two terms, have a plus sign, and group our last two terms. My first two terms are 8x squared y minus 2x squared. My next two terms are negative 12y plus 3. One common mistake that people do is they will take the 4 terms and they'll go like this, and they'll go like this, and they'll have that minus sign. What that minus sign does, if I group my terms the way I just did, this minus sign now would distribute back to both of these terms and actually make this a minus 3 instead of a plus 3. Now, we can't do that because this 3 should be positive. So, what I would like you to do is, if you have a minus sign, you can rewrite that as plus a negative, in this case, a negative 12y. So that way when you do go to group, you can separate them like that. Okay, so back to the problem. We're going to pull out our GCFs. Here, the 8 and the 2, I can pull a 2 out. I can also pull out an x squared. When I do that, I am left with 4y minus 1. I'm going to pull out my GCF from the second pair. This is a negative, so I need to actually pull out a negative. This is going to be minus 3, and that's going to leave me with 4y minus 1. So one of my factors is going to be this 4y minus 1. My other factor is going to be this stuff left over. And this is that 4-term polynomial in factored form. Again, we can check it by foiling these two together. And that's going to do it. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.